Yeah. So basically, continuous charge distribution, that is the topic. What is this continuous charge distribution? So far, we have studied the forces or even electric field due to single charges, that is point charge first of all, and then collection of many charges like that we have studied now, and electric field we have added, that is due to a single charge we can directly say what is electric field. If the charge is q, we have written k times q by the distance square. This is the formula, Coulomb's law formula for electric field. Now if there are many charges, then vector addition we have to do. So if there are, let us say, three charges, e1 plus e2 plus e3, and this is vector addition. So this is the net electric field at a particular point P due to a collection of charges. Here we are talking about electric field due to three charges, q1, q2 and q3 maybe. So these are all individual charges, you see, they are separate charges. So such a distribution or collection of charges is called discrete charges. On the other hand, suppose an object is entirely charged. It can be of any shape, it can be of any object, but suppose if it is entirely charged and we say that some amount of charge is residing on this object, then such an object is called a continuously charged object. So such a distribution of charge in that object is called continuous charge distribution. Now different types are possible in that. We are going to see what are the different types that are possible under this category. So the full object is charged and the charges are everywhere in that object. We cannot count the charges basically. Here we are counting 1, 2, 3 like that and then calculating the electric field. But here the charges are so many there in number on the object that we cannot even count it. Then the charges becomes continuous. So it is what is called as continuous distribution of charges. Why it is called distribution? The charges are distributed all over the object. This is some charged object. So this object contains a lot of charges and therefore we say this as continuous charge distribution. Right. What are the different types in that? We can see that. Basically there are three types. There is this line charge, surface charge and volume charge. What do we mean by line charge first? What is line charge? Line charge is a single straight wire that is completely charged. Let us say there is a wire or an object. It has charge, some charge, total charge q. Let us call the length of this object as L. Now the charges are so continuously distributed throughout. It may be positive charges, it may be negative charges, but the object is fully charged. Such an object is called linear charge. Such an arrangement of charge in an object is called a linear charge because linear comes from the word line. So charges are distributed in a straight line like this on this object. So to show that clearly, we can imagine that the charges are on this object, maybe on the top or bottom, wherever it is, but they are on this object. So I am putting some positive charges on this object continuously. There is no gap and the charges are distributed uniformly throughout the object. So any region of this object you take, the charge density lambda is constant. If lambda is constant, then the object is said to be uniformly charged. What is this lambda? It is not wavelength, right? So far we have seen lambda used for wavelengths only. Here it is completely different. In electrostatics, lambda is called linear charge density. So this lambda is the name. Linear charge density. That is Q, the total charge, divided by the total length of the object L. The unit for charge is coulomb. So the unit for lambda will be coulomb per meter. This is called lambda, linear charge density. Now when we say this lambda is constant, then the rod or line of wire is said to be uniformly charged. That means, what is the meaning of this actually? Any small portion of this wire you take, you see the number of charges in that, and you divide that by small length dx, lambda is going to be the same. Any other portion you take, the lambda value will be the same. You take a larger portion or you take a very small portion, whatever you do, lambda is going to be the same. So lambda can also be defined in that case as small amount of charge in a small element dx. dq by dx is lambda. Now this lambda, that is q by l, is equal to lambda dq by dx. Then we can say that it is uniformly charged. The object is said to be uniformly charged. So this is our first type, that is line charge. This is called line charge. Now under what condition this will happen? When you take an element that is very small, that is dx should be very, very small. So under the limit that dx or dl, I am calling this del L in this one, that is dq by dl or dq by dx, both are same. dq by dl is for general. If you consider x-axis, you will write as x. Otherwise you will write generally dl. So you can very well write this as dq by dl also. A small element dl. What is the small element? The line charge is there, in that you are taking a very small portion. That is called element. Element of the wire. A small element you are taking. It's called element. In that element you are having a charge dq. The length of the element is dl. Therefore you can define lambda as dq by dl. Again the unit is coulomb per meter. Now this is therefore called as line charge. Such a distribution, if charge is arranged therefore in a wire, then we can call that as line charge. Now what is the dimension of wire? One dimension. Thin wire. So the wire can be either in the x-axis, or it can be along the y-axis, or it can be along the z-axis, or it can be in any other direction also. Basically it is not extending. That is why we call this one dimensional. So it is having extension along only one direction, that is x direction or y direction or z direction. Then we can call this as line charge. The next one, second type, is the surface charge. What is the surface charge? If charge is distributed over a surface uniformly, that is on a sheet of paper, for example, you can imagine a sheet of paper with lot of charges on it. How many? You cannot count that many. Continuously charges are there everywhere. Right? Everywhere you can put plus or minus throughout the sheet. Now this is a two-dimensional object. That is, you can define y-axis and x-axis. That is, any point on this plane is having two coordinates, x comma y. So it is a sheet of charge. It is not a line of charge now. It is a sheet of charge. Therefore, now you have to define what is called as a surface charge density sigma. Sigma is nothing but dq by dA, small area dA. So what do you mean by this? You take any small area here on the sheet, you measure the charge in that area, the charge is dq. So you divide the charge with that area dA, you get sigma. Any other area you take, of any other size also you can take. Again measure the charge, some charge you may get, and you can get the area, some area. So if you want to give, first you can give dq1 by dA1. Now since the charge is varying, you can give dq by dA2. Again what you get is sigma only. It is not sigma 1 and sigma 2. So sigma is both equal to dq1 by dA1. It's also equal to dq2 by dA2, and so on and so forth. Any area in any shape you take area, see the charge in that, divide the charge by area, you get sigma only. So sigma is uniform throughout on the entire sheet. Wherever you measure, sigma does not change, so sigma is constant. Then this kind of a surface charge can be called as a uniform surface charge. Uniform surface charge. So this is a sheet of charge. So some charge, if it is distributed in 2 dimensions like this, then you can call this as a surface charge or a sheet of charge. Right. So this is the second type of charge. So here what is the sigma? Sigma is called the surface charge density. In the previous case, lambda was called as linear charge density. Here it is a surface charge density. Sigma is surface charge density. And sigma is defined as dq by dA. Small area element dA. There it was line element. Here this is called as dA is called as areal element or area element. Simply you can write area element or element of area. Now what is the unit for this? Unit for this is coulombs per meter squared. Right? So linear charge density, surface charge density. Line charge, surface charge. Lambda, sigma. Coulomb per meter square. One dimensional, two dimensional. Right. Now finally, three dimensional charged objects. What do we mean by three dimensional charged objects? Suppose you have a sphere of charge. A sphere is a 3D object. The entire sphere is full of charge. Sphere means it is not a shell. It is a solid sphere. Solid sphere. Entire sphere, inside everywhere there is charge. Then continuously distributed over the entire sphere. So the third type is therefore called as volume charge. The entire volume has charge. So this is called volume charge. And volume charge is in 3 dimensions. Because any point on the sphere you can represent using 3 coordinates, x, y and z. It is a truly 3-dimensional object. Now you can define what is called a volume charge density rho. Volume charge density. That is rho. How is rho defined? Rho is nothing but in a small volume. Let us call the small volume in this as small piece of this. Let us take a small cubical shaped piece from this cut from the sphere, and let us call that volume in that is d tau. I am using tau symbol because if I use a dV for volume, later on we will do potential. Electrostatics means we have to do potential or voltage, right? That time we will be having again V symbol. So to avoid confusion in standard textbooks, actually here volume they don't use dV, they use d tau. So it is d tau. That is charge per unit volume. So what will be the units here? Coulomb per meter cube, because volume units is meter cube. It is in the denominator, so per meter cube. Charge unit is coulomb. So small portion if you take and measure in the sphere, everywhere rho will be constant. That means throughout the sphere rho is not changing, therefore you have uniform volume charge. Uniform charge density. Uniform volume charge density, rho. Of course, later on we will understand that there are going to be situations where lambda or sigma or this rho can be non-uniform also. That is a special case we have to deal later. That all the time integration will become more tough. But initially we will not bother about that. Initially we will assume that lambda is equal to dq by dl or dx, which is nothing but q by l. Similarly, sigma is dq by dA, which is nothing but total charge over the area A, and rho is dq by d tau, which is nothing but q by tau. Tau is what? Tau is the total volume. I am using a different symbol for volume here. Please again remember, because the V will be in electrostatics, V is reserved for potential. V is the symbol for a quantity called electrostatic potential, or simply potential. In 10th standard also you must have studied Ohm's law. In that you know that the current is proportional to the voltage V. That voltage is nothing but potential. So that symbol is reserved for that in electrostatics. So we cannot use V for volume here. So I am using some other symbol for volume, tau. So if you divide the total charge by the total volume, you get rho. This is rho, or HO. You must have used this earlier in first year for density and all, right? That is, here it is volume charge density. Similarly, sigma is here surface charge density. Lambda is line charge density or linear charge density. These are the three continuous charge distributions. Now, this limit, lambda is defined with a limit only. Similarly, sigma is defined with a limit. Similarly, rho is defined with a limit. What is that limit? The element that you are selecting in that wire must be very small. That is, it should be tending to 0. Under the condition that this element is tending to 0, in mathematics also, at the beginning of calculus, they would have taught you this. That when can you convert this del q by del L into a small differential dq by dl? That can be done only when del L is very small. So under the limit del L going to 0, del q by del L becomes dq by dl. Similarly, del q by del A becomes dq by dA, and del q by del tau becomes dq by d tau. So these are the three types of continuous charge distributions: line charge, lambda quantity, linear charge density. The unit for lambda is coulomb per meter. Surface charge, the quantity is surface charge density sigma, the unit is coulomb per meter square. That is charge per meter square or charge per unit area. Similarly, volume charge, the quantity is volume charge density rho, which is nothing but charge over the entire volume, charge per unit volume. So it can be defined as dq by d tau. The unit for that is coulomb per meter cube. So these are the three different types of charge distributions that we will encounter in real life. So now the question comes. So far we were calculating electric field due to one charge, single charge, some point charge, electric field due to that Q. You have applied Coulomb's law and you have got the electric field value at that point P. Suppose if I say now that this point is no longer a point, now it is a sphere, a solid sphere, completely blocked solid sphere, that is inside full of charge. The total charge on the sphere also is now Q. Now the question is, can I apply Coulomb's law here? What is the electric field due to the sphere at a point P? Point charge I can do. Many charges I can do by adding. What if the charges are continuously and fully distributed over the sphere? How is my electric field going to be calculated? This is a continuous. Yes, we have to do integration. Yes, exactly. Limits for the sphere we have to do and do integration. Correct. So suppose if it is a line charge, again we have to do integration. Suppose it is a sheet of charge or a circular disk of charge. disk, like your compact disk, CD or DVD. Let us say our DVD is fully charged with a surface charge sigma. What is the electric field at a point due to the surface charge? Then also we have to do integration. So in each of these three cases, we have to select a small element. Some element we have to select and assume in each case that the elemental charge is dq. Here also small cubic element, small piece. You cut a small piece from the sphere, that is a cubic element, let us say charge is dq. Now in each case it is dq only, but dq meaning is different in each case. In this case dq is nothing but lambda into dl or dx, whatever you want to use. Here dq is sigma into dA. Here dq is rho into d tau. This is how the elemental charge. So dq is nothing but elemental charge. That means charge in a small portion of that whole object. Now the real technique is here, everywhere you want to get electric field due to the entire object. How will you do is, you will take a small element and you will calculate the electric field due to the small element at a point P. Then you will integrate it over the entire object. If it is a line, you will do integral over the entire line, length of the line. If it is a sheet or surface charge, you will integrate it over entire area. If it is a volume charge, you will integrate over entire volume. So that is the technique we have to use. Again, therefore, Coulomb's law is valid. We can still continue to use Coulomb's law. So for each of these cases, therefore, we can define the electric field as we defined before only. That is, for line charge, electric field E is nothing but 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught dq by r squared. R is the distance between the point where you are measuring the field and the element that is present within that object. Again, we can therefore write it as 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught lambda into dl divided by r squared. Of course, you have to do integration. Constant is outside, then you have to integrate to get E, because as such if you write, it is dE. Since dE is equal to k into, that is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into dq by r square. So this is actually dE. You want E, so you have to integrate it. Same way for surface. So for surface charge, it is going to be E is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught integration of dq by r square, where dq is sigma into dA divided by r square. Now, if lambda or sigma is constant, you can take it out. If suppose in some cases they will give lambda as a function of r or sigma as a function of r, that time you cannot take it out. That time they will also be involved in the integration process. So this is also possible. This is for non-uniform charge distribution. That is somewhat more complex than the uniform one. So in each case you have non-uniform charge distribution. That is the densities, the line charge density or linear charge density lambda, or the surface charge density sigma, or the volume charge density rho varies as a function of the distance r within the object. So within the object in different points, the charge density is not the same, it is not the constant. Then you will have this problem. Otherwise, you can take it out and integrate only the remaining things. So the third is also simple. Therefore, by extension, we can write volume charge is nothing but the electric field due to a volume charge is E is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught integral rho d tau by r square. This is how you can do the calculation of electric field in each case. Of course, if you want to write it in vector, you will put here vector and you will put here r cap. So in each case you can do that. So you can write it in vector forms. So again we are actually using Coulomb's law only, but now not for a discrete charge distribution, but for a continuous charge distribution. That is the whole idea. So depending on whether what electric field of which object they are asking, you will decide among the three formulae which one you have to use. Then you will adapt it and try to integrate it. Once you integrate, you will get the electric field. That is how we are going to now today do for some applications for some objects. Electric field for some of these objects. Right. So first we will do as a first application electric field intensity due to a uniformly charged rod. So rod is a linear object. Of course it is very thin, a thin rod we are considering, and it is placed along a particular axis, in this case let us say x-axis. Now what is the electric field due to this charged rod? At a point on its axis, this is specifically given, it is at a point along the axis of the rod. It is not at some arbitrary point. That we will do next. For the time being, we will do therefore for a rod at a point along the axis. Along the axis means this is the axis of the rod and it is parallel to the x-axis. So at any other point on the x-axis, what will be the electric field due to this rod? That is the question. So we are considering a rod of length L, capital L. So how to define the linear charge density for this rod? The linear charge density lambda for this rod is lambda is equal to the total charge Q divided by the total length L. So that can be defined as Q over L. If you take a small portion dx of this rod and see how much charge is present in that small portion dx, you will find that the charge that is present is dq, and therefore if you take a ratio of the dq to the dx, that will also be equal to lambda. So lambda is also equal to dq by dx. Right. So we are considering a small element and the charge that is present here is dq. Therefore, since lambda is dq by dx, I can write dq is equal to lambda into dx. So we have written dq is equal to lambda into dx. Right. Now, the electric field dE, that is a small electric field contributed by that small portion of length dx having a charge dq is dE. That dE is equal to k, which is a constant, Coulomb's constant, which is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught multiplied by the small charge dq that is present in that element divided by the distance from that element to the point where I am measuring the field. That is here taken to be x. So if you go back to the diagram and check it, the element center is from where I am measuring the point P. Point P is where I want the electric field. At that point, the distance between the element and that point is from the center of the element, if I measure, that is taken to be small x. Now what is this A? Now the rod itself is extending up to that point, and after that there is no rod. In that region, the distance is taken to be small a, because we want along the axis. Along the axis, if you want to at a particular point, till some distance the rod is there. The length of the rod is extending to that point. Beyond that, there is nothing. So you want electric field at a point P which is somewhat away from the rod. That is the meaning of it. Right, therefore I have to integrate to get the total electric field, because it is a continuous distribution. You know that integration technique is, it is like summation only, that is, it is like adding only, but the number of terms to add becomes too many now, because the charges are not countable now. If the charges are countable, 10 or 15 or 20, you will add E1 plus E2 plus E3 plus E4, like that we go, because we know that Coulomb's law also obeys superposition principle. That means you can calculate electric field due to each piece and add it. That is if the charges are separate. But in this case, the charges are not separate. The charges are continuously distributed over the entire object. So any small portion you take, you calculate the electric field due to that portion, then extend it for the whole object. That is the technique of integration. So here therefore you are doing integral dE. That will give me the total electric field E. That what is the limit I am deciding? That is, I am going to integrate from A to A plus L. That is this distance A to the entire length A plus L of the rod. L is the length of the rod. So from this point to this whole point I am going to integrate whatever electric field I am going to get due to the small portion dx. That is the idea here. Therefore, I can again write the previous expression dE under the integral symbol k lambda dx by x squared, because dq is lambda into dx. Right. So k lambda is the constant that is taken out, and integration of dx by x squared basically we have to do. That is like x power minus 2 into dx. So you are going to get x power minus 2 plus 1 divided by minus 2 plus 1, that is minus 1 by x. So if you integrate, therefore what you are going to get? Only minus 1 by x. K lambda is outside. Now to minus 1 by x you have to apply the two limits a plus L and a. So integration, I think you are all familiar, upper limit minus lower limit you have to do when you want to apply the limits. So k lambda into minus 1 by a plus L minus 1 by a. So here it should be upper limit minus lower limit, but it can already there is a minus sign here, right? Minus 1 by x, right? So minus sign is there, and when you do the formula also you will do upper limit minus lower limit, so minus of minus becomes plus. That is why you have k lambda into minus 1 by a plus L minus of minus plus 1 by a. So k is nothing but 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. What about lambda? Lambda is still there. I have not written, I have forgotten to write here. Lambda is there. And inside that, you can take the positive term in the front and negative term later. So 1 by a minus 1 by a plus L. So that is the result for electric field due to a charged rod along its axis at a distance a from the end of the rod. This is the formula for that. Now, the point is, should we remember this formula? That is a question. Now, first and foremost is, in many problems, you have to know how to adapt one formula to many cases, because we cannot remember 100 formulas, right? So let me do some kind of changes also to this so that you remember this for one case, then you can do the same thing for all other cases. Here what we have got is therefore lambda divided by 4 pi epsilon naught, right? That is what we have got. Yeah. 1 by a minus 1 by a plus L. Now we had a charged rod whose length is L. They wanted the distance A, at a distance A from the one end of the rod we wanted. So 1 by A minus 1 by A plus L. Right. To throw out the rod, we have therefore integrated and got this result. Now, suppose in the problem, they are not giving you lambda. Then how to calculate electric field? They may give you then Q. So if Q and L are separately given, therefore you have to then calculate Q by L to get lambda. This is one case. Some other cases, you may have to involve L in the integration. That time you can again write it in terms of that also. In terms of Q also, same result you can remember. That is Q divided by 4 pi epsilon naught L into 1 by A minus 1 by A plus L. This is also equally valid. Both results are equally valid. Depending on what is given in the problem, whether they are given in terms of lambda or Q, you have to be able to do this. So if you remember lambda formula, if they are given lambda, directly you will substitute. If they have not given lambda, if they are given Q, then you have to convert and try to substitute. So this is how you have to do this. Right. It is not changing. Right. So this is one example of continuous charge distribution. Now let us see another example. What is the electric field intensity, that is E, due to an infinite line charge? See, now whatever we saw a charged rod or line charge, and along the axis at this point we have seen to the right of the rod. Now suppose if the rod itself is extending to infinity and I want electric field at a point like this, away from the rod at a point P. How can we do the same technique and get the electric field due to such a continuous line charge? Continuous, why we say on either side there is no end to this. So it is an infinite line charge. Now you may ask this question, is it possible, sir, in reality can there be any infinite line charge? There cannot be any infinite line charge. But suppose you say that electric power line is coming to your house. Assume that the power line has only stationary charges, because we are not talking about current electricity yet. We are only talking about static charges. So suppose the charges are not moving and the line is a few hundred meters, 200 or 300 meters, let us say. In 200-300 meter line, if you go close enough to the line, then for a point that is close enough, so what I am telling is, suppose the line is extending, let us say about 200 or 300 meters, and I want electric field at this point, very close, or 20 centimeter, let us say 20 centimeter from the line, I want to measure the electric field. Under such a case, if I stay very close to the line at this point, the line will appear like it is extending from minus infinity to plus infinity. So when you are far away from this, you will know that it is a finite line, because you will see both the ends. You will see both the ends. But when you are very close, you will think that the line is extending to infinity. It is like, for example, an ant is there. An ant is going on this line. What will think? It will think it will go for, let us say, about 100 meters this side. It will think nothing is there. Again come back. It is going for several kilometers, like that it will think. And then the ant will go like this. So for the ant, even the world is one dimension. And in this case, it will think the line is extending to infinity, because it cannot travel 100 or 200 meters easily. Suppose even it is a kilometer, let us say 3 kilometers. Now it is more difficult for the ant to travel from the central point 1.5 kilometers on this side and 1.5 kilometers on this side, because for the ant, after traveling 200 or 300 meters, it will feel very tired and it will want to get food immediately. It will lose energy. So it will turn back and assume that food is on the other side. So it will go and cross this point and again try to go this side and try somewhere look for the food. That is what an ant will do. So if it is close enough, if you are close enough to this line, the line will appear to be infinite. That is the approximation we are considering here. So we cannot ask the question, how can a line go from infinity, sir? Is it possible for a charge to have infinite length? We are not here discussing a real case. We are discussing an approximation here. So under the condition that this point P is very close to this line, we can consider this to be an infinite wire of length. We don't know any length is infinite. It is extending from minus infinity to plus infinity. Right. Now what is the distance at which we are measuring the electric field here? We want to measure the electric field at point P at a distance small y from the wire. Small y is the distance between the point or the line charge and the point where we want to measure. Right. Now the same technique we have to use here also. What is the technique? First of all, we will measure the electric field at the point P due to a small charge dq in a small element dx, and then integrate over the entire length. Now length is infinite, so we have to take an infinite integral. We will take an infinite integral and try to integrate it to get the electric field at the point due to the entire wire or entire line charge. So this line charge, I am showing some positive charges on this line that is extending to infinity. That is what we have to remember. Right. Now in this case, therefore, we can define what is called as a linear charge density lambda. That can be defined as dq small dq by dx. Or, of course, we cannot define q by L here because L is infinite. So I don't want to define q by L for this. So lambda is basically dq by dx. And unit is coulomb per meter. Right. So from the center of this, what is the center for an infinite wire? For an infinite wire, any point is central point, no problem. Anywhere you can take the center, because on either side it is extending to infinity. So under that condition, we can assume that at the point, reference point, let us say, which is the origin of this wire, I am considering an element at a distance x from that origin. So it is at a distance x. So I can say that the coordinate system is starting at this point x is equal to 0, and the left side of that is all points are negative. That is, it goes to minus infinity. X is equal to minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 5, minus 10, minus 100, minus infinity. Similarly, to the right of it, all points are positive values for x-axis. X going to infinity again on the right side. Now I want to measure the electric field dE first. So dE is nothing but the Coulomb's constant K multiplied by the small charge in that segment, that is dq, divided by r square. So K into dq by r square. Right. Now dE is equal to K into, what is this dq? Lambda into dx. So here I have put capital, sorry, it is small only. Capital Q I have used suddenly. It is small q1. So K into lambda dx divided by r square. What is r square? Square root of x square plus y square. In this diagram you see, r is the hypotenuse. R is the hypotenuse of this triangle. What is r actually? R is the actual distance from the element of the wire to the point where we want to measure the field. Now that happens to be hypotenuse of the triangle under consideration. So we are getting a triangular shape here, and in that r is the direct distance between the element and the point P. Y and x are going to, therefore we can take square root of x square plus y square to get r. So square root of x square plus y square is r, and we have to square it again, because in the formula for Coulomb's law we have r square in the denominator. So we will effectively get k lambda dx divided by x square plus y square. Now at this point P, the electric field direction is like this. From this element it is pointing diagonally. Therefore, so basically we have a line charge extending to infinity. We are taking a small portion that is at a distance x from the origin. The length of this element is dx. We want electric field, let us say at this point P. Let us call this point as P. Now if you draw a line connecting that point to this element, the length is r. Now this is y, because I am just assuming y axis, this is perpendicular to x, so I am calling it y distance. This is x, so your r is square root of x square plus y squared. Now electric field at this point P from this element is going to therefore point like this, the direction, right? So now we can consider some angles. Suppose if I call this angle as theta, and then this vertical I am just extending, then this is theta, right, because it is a straight line, right? Similarly, I can consider another element on the other side also, and the electric field due to that element will be, sorry, so not easy to draw here, yeah, so due to that element also I can draw a straight line like this, and the electric field will be pointing in the opposite direction. Now therefore I have two equal and oppositely pointing electric fields like this. Now I can divide this is E, some vector E vector or DE, let us call, because small element it is, so this DE vector. Now this DE and this DE vector will have both horizontal and vertical components. So with respect to the vertical, since we are considering the angle to be theta, it will have a sin theta component that is horizontal, sin theta component that is horizontal. This is going to be cos theta here. So these two components will cancel. So this is DE sin theta, or this is pointing this side, so I can call it minus DE sin theta, right side DE sin theta. So these two will cancel. So effectively I have DE cos theta due to both this. So DE cos theta, actually 2DE cos theta. But that is if I integrate from 0 to infinity, because 0 to infinity this side and 0 to minus infinity that side, I will have to have the 2 factor. Otherwise I don't even have to have 2 factor. I can take the 2 also out and integrate between minus infinity to plus infinity. Integral DE cos theta will give me the electric field E. So this is what I am going to do. So here the components are dividing like that. So I can split the component along the x-axis as DEX and along y-axis DEY. DEX is going to cancel, that is sin theta components. That remaining is the cos theta components, that is called DEY, because it is along the y-axis. So DEY is equal to DE cos theta. Now what is cos theta in this triangle? Cos theta is y by r, adjacent by hypotenuse, so y by r. So in my formula, DE I have already calculated in the first step, k lambda dx by x square plus y square. To that I am multiplying this cos theta, so to get DE cos theta, so DEY is equal to DE into cos theta. In that cos theta is y by r, again r is square root of x square plus y square, so I put that also here. Now if we collect the terms, I will get a k lambda y is there, so k lambda y k lambda dx divided by x square plus y square power 3 by 2, because x square plus y square power 1 and x square plus y square power half, so it is 3 by 2, this step. Now constants have to come out of the integration. In the diagram if you see, of course k is a constant, lambda is constant, because uniform charge density we have assumed, k is the Coulomb's constant, we will take it out. Y is also a constant, y is the distance at which you want the electric field, so y is not going to change at all, you are fixing the distance initially. So y is a constant, you can take it out. Now if you go along the length of the rod, it may extend to infinity, but still if you go along the length of the rod and integrate, x is changing. I can take another element here, I can take another element here, I can take anywhere else on the rod. So x is what is changing, so the variable here is x. So I have to do integration with respect to x. So already I have dx, so dx divided by whatever is remaining, x square plus y square power 3 by 2. Now this integral we have to solve by the substitution method. That is, from x variable it is not easy to integrate this one. If you want to use x variable and integrate, it is not easy. So you have to convert it to some other easy way. So the simplest way is, generally we have to assume x is y tan theta. X is equal to y tan theta. So if you go to this triangle and again verify that is it correct, is it logical. Tan theta, if I write, it is opposite side by adjacent side. So it is x by y. So tan theta is x by y. Therefore x is equal to y tan theta. So even if the diagram is not satisfying, we can actually use this, because integration technique itself is, we have to use the trigonometric method. You must have studied it, I think. This is a trigonometric substitution that we have to do to get the solution for the given integral. Otherwise this integral we cannot directly solve it. So we are now using x is equal to y tan theta substitution. So if you do that, x square becomes y square tan square theta. So x square plus y square becomes y square plus y square tan square theta. Y square is common. If you take it out, you get y square into 1 plus tan square in the denominator. This is only for x square plus y square. 1 plus tan square theta is secant square theta, trigonometric identity. So you get y square secant square theta here. But in the denominator, power 3 by 2 is there, so you have to apply 3 by 2 to that. So if you do that, y square power 3 by 2 becomes y cube. Secant square theta power 3 by 2 becomes secant cube theta. And numerator, there is a dx, so you want to find out what is dx. You assumed x to be y tan theta, so if you do dx, it is y secant square theta d theta. That is, you are differentiating x with respect to theta. So dx by d theta is, y is a constant, so y into secant square theta. So dx alone will be equal to y secant square theta d theta. Now you have got what is dx also you have got. What is the denominator, x square plus y square power 3 by 2 also you have got. So you have to just substitute these two things in this integral. So if you substitute it, dx by x square plus y square power 3 by 2 as this, the numerator y and denominator y square will, y cube will cut. So y square will remain. Secant square theta, secant cube theta will cancel. 1 by secant theta will be there, that becomes cos theta. D theta is as such retained. Again, if you pack it here in this integral, outside there was a y originally. That y will cut this y square, and 1 by y will remain. Now integration of all you have to do is cos theta d theta, which is very simple. But if your integral is in terms of theta, your original limit of minus infinity to plus infinity has to be changed. Why? Because in this problem, if you go and back see, x, when x varies, it varies between minus infinity to plus infinity. But here we have converted the variable of x into variable of theta for integration purpose. Since we have done that conversion, our limit also should change from x limits to theta limits. What is the theta limit maximum possible? When x is minus infinity, that is long wire, this line will keep bending top towards the top. So theta becomes minus pi by 2. Similarly, when wire is extending to the right to the infinity, this line will keep lifting and it will become perpendicular to this vertical. That means theta is pi by 2. So as x varies from minus infinity to plus infinity, I have changed the limits here and shown here. As x varies from minus infinity to plus infinity, theta varies from minus pi by 2 to plus pi by 2. Right? So we have to now therefore substitute the new limits minus pi by 2 to plus pi by 2 here. Integration of cos theta is going to be sin theta. K lambda by y, we already have it. So k lambda by y is the constant, and sin theta limits if you apply, that is pi by 2 and minus pi by 2 if you apply, it is going to be sin 90 minus of sin minus 90 is minus 1. So 1 minus of minus 1 is 1 plus 1, 2. So k lambda, 2k lambda by y, that is the result you are getting, and k is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. So if you substitute, final result is the electric field is therefore lambda divided by 2 pi epsilon naught into the distance y at which you are measuring the electric field, the distance from the rod or line of charge at which you are measuring the electric field, that is there. So the electric field here is therefore changing as 1 by r, not 1 by r square for the line charge. Remember this. Coulomb's law told us for point charge electric field is proportional to, for a point charge E is proportional to 1 by r square. but here the distance is y, and we are finding out that the electric field is proportional to 1 by y. So it is like 1 by r relationship. Right, that is the difference between a point charge and a line charge. Right. So this expression you have to remember for any problems. You have to remember this expression readily. So electric field is lambda. Lambda is the linear charge density divided by 2 pi epsilon naught multiplied by the distance y. So lambda divided by 2 pi epsilon naught y. That is the electric field at that point. Of course, x component is cancelling, so I am just writing y. But that is also the total electric field. Right. Now you can convert this in terms of even x over q also. If you want to convert it into q also, you can write it. How can you do this? Very simple, right? Lambda is nothing but q by L. So here L is infinite, so you don't want to convert. If it is a finite length, we can convert. So now we will see what happens to the finite length. For a finite wire of length L, how can we calculate? Because whatever result we have obtained is for an infinite length wire. So for a finite length wire, how can we calculate? I am here assuming a finite length wire of length, let us say L, capital L. Now I am measuring electric field not exactly at the midpoint. See, I am not, the origin here is slightly to the left of the midpoint. Even for this, I can apply the same previous result and do it. How can I do? I can do it in two ways. First is, I got a result here. K lambda y into sine theta for the limits pi by 2 minus pi by 2, because I converted x to theta. So if I again convert theta into x back, I can change the limit also to infinity to minus infinity. So going one step backwards, sine theta is what? We have already seen here. Sine theta from the diagram. Sine theta from the diagram is x by r. R is x square plus y square square root. So all you have to do is, instead of sine theta here, you are putting therefore x divided by square root of x square plus y square. So k lambda by y into x by square root of x square plus y square. Limit is now minus infinity to plus infinity. But that was for infinite wire. For a finite wire, I can use this expression and directly convert finite wire of length L. I am assuming that the left side is minus L1. The right side is L2 plus L2. Why L1 and L2? L1 and L2 are from the point O where I am measuring the electric field. O is not the center. So L1 and L2 are not equal. That is what I mean. That's why I am taking L1 and L2. Otherwise, I will take minus L and plus L. See, I am doing a more general case. One case can be, I have a line charge. I want electric field exactly at the midpoint, above the midpoint. I can call this as O. Now the entire length is therefore 2L. 2L. So I will take minus L2 plus L. And the integration therefore will be minus L2 plus L of whatever expression is there, that is x divided by square root of x square plus y square. I can do this. Of course, constant are outside. Whatever constants we have, that is outside. K into k by y into lambda, that is outside. This way I can do, but it is somewhat simpler. A more complicated case will be trying to measure the electric field at a point that is not above the midpoint. So I am measuring at a point that is somewhere arbitrarily, randomly some point above this point. So this O is now shifting to this point. Under that case, the wire is not dividing equally into minus L and plus L. Instead, the wire I am dividing into some lengths. To the left side, the length is L1. To the left side of O. To the right side, it is L2. So for that, if I substitute here limits, you can see that for x I am initially putting L2. So L2 divided by square root of y square plus L2 square. minus of minus L1. So plus L1 divided by y square plus L1 square. So instead of x square, I am putting L2 and L1 here. Squaring will get rid of the minus sign, and numerator also minus of minus will become plus. So this is the direct result I can get for a finite wire. Otherwise, I can do one more step here. See, here I can do one more step. What is that step? When the wire is finite, like I have shown here, now the angles are also fixed. For a finite wire, the angles are fixed. So I can take two angles. What are these angles? Initially theta equally I have taken. Now there will be theta 1 and theta 2. So I have taken here two angles. Then instead of sine theta limit minus pi by 2 to plus pi by 2, the limits will now change to theta 2 and theta 1. Then I can directly apply here sine theta 2 minus of minus theta 1, because theta 1 is minus here. Left side angle is from right side vertical to top. If you go in anti-clockwise direction, anti-clockwise you have taken positive, so clockwise will be negative. So it is minus of minus plus. So k lambda by y into sine theta 2 plus sine theta 1. This is the expression. Again from sine theta you can write as L2 for a length, L2 divided by same expression you can get from this step also. So at two different stages we can derive from infinite expression, we can try to come to the finite wire length. So this expression is somewhat more difficult to remember compared to the infinite one. Infinite one was very simple, lambda by 2 pi epsilon naught y. But for finite, other things are involved, so you get a complex expression. Basically it is nothing. See, it is if you do this, see, this is x square plus y square. So it is here, it is y plus L1 square is the R here. This is R1 I can call. Similarly here I can call R2. Because of the unequal lengths, we are getting this big expression here. So this is how for a continuous line charge one can calculate electric field at a point for two cases, finite wire, infinite wire. Right. Next we can do something similar for a circular ring of charge also. What is this ring of charge? Suppose if the charges are arranged in a circular fashion continuously, the object is a ring and ring is completely charged, then we can call it as a circular ring of charge. Now we want electric field at a point along the axis of the ring. What is that axis of the ring? In the next diagram you can clearly see this. Now the ring is vertically positioned here. The radius of the ring is capital R, and A is the distance from the center of the ring along the axis up to the point P. So capital P is the point where I want to measure the electric field. So basically I am trying to measure the electric field at a point due to a continuously charged circular ring. So this is a ring of charge. The ring can have positive charge or negative charge, doesn't matter. The axis of the ring is like this. This is the axis of the ring. I want electric field at a point on the axis due to these charges. So charges you can imagine here. The ring is completely charged. You can put positive charges all over the ring. Now what is electric field at this point P? The radius of the ring is given as R. Now again I am going to use the same technique. I will take a small piece, element of the ring, and I will calculate the electric field at this point due to that element. Now here also electric field will have two components, one horizontal in this way and one vertical in this way. Now what will happen? I can take an opposite element also anyway, because element wherever I am choosing it is my interest. I can see the electric field due to that opposite element will be going like this. Again it will have two components, one vertical, one horizontal. So the vertical components in this particular case will cancel. This will be equal and opposite, so they will cancel. Only the remaining horizontal components will add. So that is what I am going to do here in this integration. So here see I am assuming the angle to be theta here. This angle is theta. the distance from the element to the point where I want to measure the electric field is small r. The charge in that element is dq. So I can write electric field due to that small element as dEx. Why x? Because I am taking this axis to be x-axis. The y components are cancelling. So basically what is happening here is the y components are cancelling. So these components are cancelling. And this axis I have assumed to be parallel to y-axis. And this is x-axis. So the x components are there, that are not cancelling. So any element you take here, therefore any other element also you take, opposite elements will cancel one component, the other two components will remain. That is why if whether you take it from the top or from the sides, wherever you take, there will be an opposite element. Wherever you take, there will be an opposite element. Anyway, you have to integrate over the entire ring. So where you take your element does not matter here. That is why I am taking on the top here. I am taking on the top and trying to get the electric field. And see which components are cancelling and which are retained. Therefore, if this is theta, this is also theta, this is also theta. That means if this is dE, my dE cos theta will be retained. dE sin theta is cancelling. This is vertical components are dE sin theta components, they are cancelling. dE cos theta components are retaining. Therefore, the electric field along the x-axis is dE suffix x, which is equal to k into dq charge divided by the distance. Distance is what? R, small r. Small r squared. Here squared is again missing. Small r squared. That is going to be equal to, no, this is r square, right? R square is square root of r square plus a square. So r square is therefore r square plus a square only, correct. So this is not wrong, this is correct only. R square plus a square only. Right. So that is dE suffix x. Of course cos theta component, so it is cos theta. Now what we are going to do, we have to integrate to get the entire electric field due to the entire ring, circular ring. So what we are doing here is, therefore, we are writing E is equal to integral dx. Right, dx. The integration limits here are going to be small charge is dq. Over the entire ring, the total charge is going to be q, capital Q. Now anything changing because you want along the axis. The distance from the center of the circle. This is the center. So from the center of the circle, let us call that point as, let us say, C. From the center of the circle to the point P, the distance is fixed A. Once that is fixed, radius is fixed also already for the ring. So R is also fixed. So your integration variables are not changing at all. So you can take all of that outside. So if you take in the expression, in the next line here, all the constants, if you take it out, only thing is you have integral dq. Integral dq is, you are integrating a small charge present in this element. So if you integrate, what you will get is q only. Total charge. So total charge q has come. Remaining constants k and a, denominator all are constants, so all constants are retained. So this is the expression for electric field due to a circular ring on any point along the axis of the ring. This is very important. You are measuring along the axis. So this formula you can remember, kq a divided by r square plus a square power 3 by 2. Now suppose if r is 0, not r is 0, yeah, r is suppose 0, that means I am taking a smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller ring, very small ring I am taking finally, so small that the ring appears like a point charge for far away. For a far away distance, the ring will appear like a point charge. If I go very far away on the side, then the ring will behave like a point charge. So directly Coulomb's law for a point charge expression you have to get. We can check it whether it happens or not in this formula by putting r is equal to 0. Because r is 0, then it's a point charge. So if you put r is equal to 0, a square power 3 by 2 becomes a cube. Numerator there is a, so a and a cube will cancel. Effectively you will get k q divided by a squared. So if I ask you to write electric field due to a point charge, what you will write? Point charge is q. Electric field due to that will be k q by the distance a squared. So that is matching. So that is the approximation. That is the approximation when the ring is very small and you are measuring electric field far away from the ring. Right. Now coming back to the expression that we have derived here, that is the electric field kqa divided by r square plus a square power 3 by 2. If you want to express it in terms of a line charge, because here we have defined the total charge as q. The length of the line is, it's a ring of charge, so it is just like a line charge, but it is the tails are connected. The end of the two ends are joined to form the ring. So the entire length is the circumference of the circle, so it is 2 pi capital R. So here we can define a line charge lambda. Lambda is nothing but the total charge divided by the total length, which is 2 pi capital R. This is how you can define the line charge for this particular ring. If you define that way, you can substitute instead of q you can substitute a lambda into 2 pi R. So that is what I have done here. So for the original expression that we derived kqa, I am substituting for kq lambda into 2 pi R. So k into lambda into 2 pi R capital R into a divided by, of course, the denominator is same. Again, if any common terms are there, you can cancel. So here I have expanded this k also, because we know that k is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. So if you put 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, numerator 2 pi and this 4 pi will cancel, you will get 1 2. So here you got 2 for that. Epsilon naught is also there now. Numerator lambda is there, r is there, a is there. So lambda, r, a, all the three are there. And the remaining thing is as such there. So this is another way of writing the same result. So whether in the question, if they give lambda, you have to use this formula. Otherwise, you have to use the previous formula, this one. K, Q, K, this formula. So these are the two formula that can be applied for a ring of charge. So here the charge is having a linear density lambda, linear charge density lambda. It is again like a one-dimensional object, but the two ends of the ring are connected. That is, if you have a straight wire, if you bend it and form a ring, then the line charge can be lambda. That is what we have done here. So it is, we can consider that like that, and then therefore we can convert whatever q we are getting into, in terms of lambda we can write. So this is another application of continuous charge distribution. And finally today, one more application we can discuss. It is also very simple. That is electric field due to a uniformly charged disk. I was mentioning in the beginning, DVD or CD disk, you can imagine that. So this disk is like that. If the disk is entirely charged, then what is the electric field at a point x away from the disk? And the radius of the disk is taken to be capital R. So I am showing the charge is uniform over the entire disk. The charge density is sigma. So the charge density here is sigma. How do we define the sigma? Sigma is nothing but charge per unit area Q by A. So you can take a small element of the area in the disk and you can try to get the electric field due to that element, then integrate over the entire disk. So when you take an element for integration, you will try to take a known shape, a very simple shape. A simple shape for a disk can be, element of a disk can be a small, again, ring. Why we are taking a ring here? Ring is, of course, many rings will form the disk. So disk is basically made up of many small rings. All rings, if you put together, you can get disk. And already we have a result for ring. Previous result was the result we obtained for a ring. So we can directly use that result. That is, we can directly use this result, KQA divided by R square plus A square power 3 by 2 here. and we can easily solve it in 2 steps. Otherwise again we have to derive the whole thing. So since we know the ring result already, we can apply that result here and try to get it for a circular disk, uniformly charged circular disk. So I want it at a point like this, away from the disk. So I am considering a ring of radius small y and the ring of thickness dy. So ring is a definite strip, it is like a strip of wire, and it is made into a circular form. So it has a thickness dy, that is on the surface it has an extension of dy. Right. Now if the surface charge density is sigma, then the charge that is possessed by that small elemental ring is going to be dq, which is equal to the charge density multiplied by the area of the ring. What is the area of the ring, this ring? How can we calculate the area of this ring? Very simple. Area is nothing but the circumference, that is 2 pi y multiplied by the thickness dy. So 2 pi y into dy, that is the area of this ring, the whole ring. Now if you don't understand how this is happening, I will give a small example here. Assume that you are cutting the ring. You are cutting the ring and opening it. What you will get is a strip. So you are getting a strip like this. Now what is the thickness of the strip? dy. That is like a breadth of the triangle. And what is the circumference? Circumference of this is 2 pi r. When you open it, it is going to be length. So it is 2 pi r. 2 pi y here, 2 pi y. So this is like the length of the rectangle. This is like the breadth of the rectangle. So area of the rectangle is going to be length into breadth. So 2 pi y into dy therefore is the area. Area of this strip. So that is what you have done here. Right. Now you know the small area. Over the entire area you want, so you have to integrate this. So that is what we are going to do. Therefore the electric field dE can be written as k into dq into x divided by x square plus y square power 3 by 2. What is this formula? This is from the previous result for a ring. For a ring we have got already k into q into a divided by r square plus a square power 3 by 2. There the distance was a. Here the distance is x. There the total charge was, entire ring total charge was q. Here the entire ring the total charge is dq. So I am using dq. So k dq x divided by x square plus y square power 3 by 2. So this is from the previous result. Otherwise we cannot directly write it. It's difficult. If you remember that, you can write it. Right. So now I have to integrate. So I am integrating. The total electric field is integral of dE. So the whole thing I have to integrate. So k into dq already I have written. What is dq? Sigma into 2 pi y dy. So sigma into 2 pi y dy into x. So into x divided by the denominator. Same thing. Now what are the constants? You can take all the constants out. 2 pi k sigma x, all are constants, because x is also not varying. X is the fixed distance from the disk to the point where you are measuring field. Only variable is y. So you have to retain the y in the numerator. This y is retained. Integration is with respect to the variable y, so you have dy. So y dy you have in the numerator. Denominator also the y term, you cannot separate it out, so you have to retain it as such. Now again you have to do substitution to solve this. Now here what substitution you can do? In this case you can do y is equal to x tan theta. Substitution to solve this. So if you do y is equal to x tan theta, y square is equal to what? Y square will be equal to x square tan square theta. Dy will be, x is a constant, so x into differential of tan theta is secant square theta d theta. So in the numerator you can substitute y into dy. Y is x tan theta, so x tan theta. Then x secant square theta d theta, x secant square theta d theta. Denominator x square plus y square, so you can get x square plus x square tan theta. X square is common, you can take it out. 1 plus tan square theta is secant square theta. Power 3 by 2 is, you can get cube here. Of course, x square you have taken out commonly, and again power 3 by 2 is x cube. Now if you had common terms, you can cancel. Secant square theta and secant theta will cancel. You will get only secant theta in the denominator. That goes to numerator as cos theta. Tan theta is sin by cos. Again cos and cos will cancel. Only sin will remain. So the integral is now very simplified, and all you have to finally do is all the constants are taken out, and this integral of sin theta d theta. What happened to the remaining constants here? K is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, you can substitute. 2 pi sigma is there, x is there. So if you substitute all that, you will get sigma divided by 2 pi 2 epsilon naught. That is what you are getting. Of course, x also is cancelling. You see, outside there is a x. Inside there are two x's. All are cancelling this x cube. So all these terms have vanished. So ultimately what you are therefore getting is sigma by 2 pi 2 epsilon naught. It is easy to remember now. Integral of sin theta d theta is minus cos theta. Because if you differentiate cos theta again, you will get minus sin theta, right? So you can check it. A reverse of integration is differential. So therefore sin theta d theta is minus cos theta. So if you do that, again cos theta is what you have to see originally. Original triangle, if you see, in that cos theta is x by r. So if you do that here, x by r. So if you do that, that is the radius is r here. The radius is r, capital R. Then this point, you want that at a particular point, right? So this distance is r, small r. So if you do that, here you will get, instead of minus cos theta, you can substitute what you are doing is you are substituting here minus x divided by x square plus y square. Limits are 0 to r. So because the ring is extending from center 0 to the entire radius of the disk is capital R. So the integration limits are 0 to r. So if you do that, first if you apply r, what is the variable here? Y. So you have to substitute for y. So minus x divided by square root of x square plus r squared. So that is the second term. If you substitute 0, x divided by x square plus 0 square, that is 0. So x square square root, if you take x and x will cancel, you will get minus 1. So that minus 1 term becomes minus of minus plus, because it is second term. 0 is the lower limit. So you get minus of minus as plus 1. And for the first term, there will be anyway a minus sign. That minus is minus here, and x divided by x square plus, instead of y square, you are getting the upper limit r square. Sigma by 2 epsilon naught is there already. So this is the result for a disk. A uniformly charged circular disk, the electric field due to that at a point x away from the disk is this. This expression also, for results, it is important to remember. Right, so these are some of the results today that we have discussed based on the Coulomb's law application only, but only the difference is now for continuous charge distribution. So far in the previous classes we discussed only discrete charge distributions, but in reality many charge distributions will be continuous charge distributions only. Therefore, to know the application of continuous charge distribution, how to calculate electric field for a given charge distribution, we have done all this. Now, are these the only types? No, these are just some examples. Some more we can do, we have to do also. Some more types we will do in the next class also. That will complete all applications of Coulomb's law. So far whatever we discussed till yesterday last class, it was all discrete. Today we have started continuous. For one more class at least, we have some more practical applications of continuous charge distribution. For example, what is the electric field due to a spherical shell? What is the electric field due to a cylinder? All these things we can discuss. Maybe a few more we will discuss. Then when we do Gauss law later on, we can compare the results. Same results we will get very easily using what is called Gauss's law. That we will do maybe after a few classes. Right. So I think I will stop here today. If any questions are there, you can ask. అది కూడా కరెక్ట్గా పర్మనెంట్ కాదంట, మళ్ళీ ఏదో చేంజెస్ ఉన్నాయంట మీకు కూడా, అది ఇన్ఫామ్ చేస్తారు మీకు. డీన్ సార్ చెప్తా అని చెప్పారు. సో ఈ రోజుకైతే నాకు 3:30 to 5 అని చెప్పారు. సో 3:30కి తీసుకున్నాను. రేపు మళ్ళీ మార్నింగ్ ఉండొచ్చు మోస్ట్లీ మన క్లాసు. డీన్ సార్ కన్ఫర్మ్ చేస్తానని చెప్పారు కాబట్టి నేను చెప్పలేకపోతున్నాను టైం. సార్ ఇన్ఫామ్ చేస్తారు మీకు, ఓకేనా? 1.5 అవరే తీసుకోమన్నారు మా, ఈ వారం అంతా 1.5 అవర్ కంటిన్యూ చేయమన్నారు. అంటే మరి కరెక్ట్గా తెలియదు. ఇప్పుడైతే ప్రస్తుతం మన క్లాసెస్ 31st దాకా డిసైడ్ చేశారు కదా ఆల్రెడీ, దానికి ఈ స్కెడ్యూల్. 31st తర్వాత ఎలా ఉంటుందో ఏముంటుందో మనకు తెలియదు కదా. ఓకే.